Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Surai Sachit Sukhaswarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. We have been discussing the activities of Swami Vivekananda. You have noticed perhaps that from the end of 1894 onwards, Swamiji was now and then coming back to one of the themes which was dear to him, that is universalism of religion or universal religion. Now, let me try to develop how he was going about this theme, and anyone who has read the recorded conversations of Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Ramakrishna Kathamrita in Bengali original, English translation is the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna by Nikhilananda. There have been a few other translations also nowadays. Anyone who is going through will be aware that Ramakrishna used a parable concerning people of different faiths approaching the same source of water through the same ghat. Ghat means a flight of steps leading to a water source that is called ghat in South Asia. So, and they're approaching that water, they're drawing that water and calling it by different names: Jal, Pani, water, aqua, etc. Evidently, Ramakrishna was aware of this term aqua even. So the idea is that the same God is being approached through different religions, and people are naming this God by different names in different religions of the world. Sri Ramakrishna also said that it is useless to say that there are errors and superstitions in this or that religion. He said that that is not very important. There is no religion without error. But what is important is devotion to God and yearning for God, you see, because God, you see, takes note of your heart and God will guide you, even if there are errors in your religious doctrines. This is, he used to say. And so he practiced the major paths of Hinduism: Shakta, Vaishnava, Advaita Vedanta, and had intimate knowledge through dialogue about the minor sects of Hinduism like Ghoshpara, like Kartavaja, etc. And about the Reformation attempts in the form of various Brahma movements, and also the Arya Samaj. He met the founder of the Arya Samaj in Calcutta. So he was aware of this, you see, different things, and yet he affirmed the validity of all religions. What he used to decry, that do not be dogmatic. In his language, Matuar Buddhi, don't be dogmatic. That is wrong. Otherwise, you are holding an opinion about God and go on. It is okay. And if you are sincere, God will guide you finally. He also did spiritual practices according to the tenets of Sufism, and also practiced Christianity without being baptized. And he had the fullest result of spiritual practice. That means he believed in the incarnation, divine incarnation of Jesus, and he finally saw Jesus and his apostles, and Jesus gradually approached him and merged in him. So when he affirmed, Ramakrishna affirmed the validity of all religions in his language, yotomat totopat, that means as many religious doctrines of salvific value, so many paths to God. This thing should be taken with seriousness and with faith, because it comes from a man who has practiced these religions, not just a liberal view. There are many people who do not know much of religion, but they say all religions are correct, etc., etc. This is a liberal view without knowing deeply the religions. One cannot fail also to be attentive to the fact that Sri Ramakrishna often affirmed with a ring of conviction that God has become everything in this multifarious universe. This avowal is based on various mystical visions and interpretations thereof by Sri Ramakrishna himself. For example, he says that he had a vision of your food and filthy things, etc. And something from inside of him, that means his jivatma, came out like a flame and was touching everything. He says that he saw a Muslim in his, you see, they have their cheap plates, which is called sanki. In a sanki, he's having some rice and he's giving it to all classes of people, including the people of the lowest caste in Hinduism. And also he put a little rice in his mouth. Thereby God has shown him that everything is one finally. So you see, it is not only people, it is even the filthy things, etc. is finally God. What the Upanishads are saying, Sarvang Kalvidam Brahma, everything indeed is the absolute truth. That is why Swamiji said about his Guru, to proclaim and make clear the fundamental unity of underlying all religions was the mission of my master. Other teachers have taught special religions which bear their names. But this great teacher of the 19th century made no claim for himself. He left every religion undisturbed because he had realized that in reality they are all part and parcel of one eternal religion. But Swamiji used not to mention his Guru Sri Ramakrishna so much in the West, lest he should be seen as the promoter of a budding sect, and also to show to the West that these wonderful ideas were not newly made constructs by Hindus, but are mentioned in books of holy past. But we know for certain that there were several causes of the deep impression on him regarding the universal tolerance and universal oneness of the universe, spiritual oneness. One cause was the teachings of his guru. Another was his own intuition from his mystical achievements, because Swamiji himself was a mystic also. And the third one was corroboration from Vedantic texts. On the opening day of the Parliament of Religions in 1893, he highlighted the universal toleration and acceptance of all religions as true in Hinduism. 8 days later, in the paper on Hinduism read at that same parliament, Swamiji elaborated this point. The whole world of religions is only a traveling, a coming up of different men and women to various conditions and circumstances to the same goal. Every religion is only evolving a God out of the material man, and the same God is the inspirer of all of them. Why then are there so many contradictions? They are only apparent, says the Hindu. The contradictions come from the same truth adapting itself to the varying circumstances of different natures. It is the same light coming through glasses of different colors, and These variations are necessary for purposes of adaptation. But in the heart of everything, the same truth reigns. The Lord has declared to the Hindu in his incarnation as Krishna, I am in every religion as the thread through a string of pearls. Wherever thou seest extraordinary holiness and extraordinary power, raising and purifying humanity, know thou that I am there. So end quote. His first speech in India upon his return from the West should be remembered in this context. Among other things, he said, in the distant time, the sage arose and declared, Ekam sad vipra bahudha vadanti. This is a quote from your Rig Veda, first book of Rig Veda. He who exists is one, the sages call him variously. This is one of the most memorable sentences that was ever uttered, the very backbone of our national existence. Our country has become the glorious land of religious toleration. The world is waiting for this grand idea of universal toleration. The other great idea that the world wants from us today is that eternal ideal of the spiritual oneness of the whole universe. This is the dictate of Indian philosophy. This oneness is the rationale of all ethics and all spirituality. So end quote. Now, universalism in the religious domain has been attempted earlier also in India. You must note that. For example, in medieval history of medieval India, we read that Akbar the Great, he constructed a palace called Ibadat Khana in Fatehpur Sikri. And there he began to formulate from 1575 onwards the tenets of Din-e-Ilahi religion. After having assimilated the teachings of the scholars of different religions in that palace. In the last few years of his life, Keshav Chandra Sen, who was close to Sri Ramakrishna and who passed away in January 1884, proclaimed the Navavidhan principles, full of syncretism in rituals. Mr. C.R. Das paid homage to him in 1917 with the following laudatory remarks. The earlier religion of Keshav Chandra Sen's life was perhaps somewhat abstract, but his religion in developed form, as we find it in his Navavidhan, is full of concrete symbols. Read the devotional poems of the Vaishnavas, read the devotional poems of the Shaktas and the other sects, you will find they were very identical in this character. The life and work of Keshav Chandra Sen also point to the attempt after attempt at this very universalism. The result may or may not be considered satisfactory, but I refuse to judge it by the results. I rejoice in the glory of the attempt. So this is, a kind of universalism, etc. But Swamiji had another type of universalism in his mind, about which he wrote to his disciple Alasinga Perumal on May 6, 1895 itself. I am reading a part. Now I will tell you my discovery. All of religion is contained in the Vedanta. And that is the three stages of the Vedanta philosophy, the Dvaita, Bhishtra-Dvaita, and Advaita. One comes after the other. These are the three stages of spiritual growth in man. Each one is necessary. This is the essential of religion. The Vedanta applied to the various ethnic customs and creeds of India is Hinduism. The first stage, that is Dvaita, applied to the ideas of the ethnic groups of Europe is Christianity. As applied to the Semitic groups, Mohammedanism. The Advaita, as applied in its yoga perception form, is Buddhism, etc. Now, where religion is meant, the Vedanta, the applications must vary according to the different needs, surroundings, and other circumstances of different nations. And we'll find that although the philosophy is the same, the Shaktas, the Shaivas, etc., apply it each to their own special cult and forms. I wish to write a book on this subject, therefore I wanted the three Vashyas. Vashyas means commentaries, but only one volume, the Ramanuja Vasya, has reached me as yet. End quote. So, you see, this idea was with him, and he repeated it in one of the meetings. One of the discourses he gave from the ice house in Madras after his return from the West. And in the gathering, there were many scholars and pandits. So one of them rose and said that even Shankara did not say this. You were saying that these are different stages. Swamiji replied, it is because this was reserved for Vivekananda to be preached to humanity. That was his reply. If idea is that if Shankara is a rishi, he himself was also a rishi. He was asserting this. So this is your universalism of one kind. Now I shall tell you something of the ideas in Christianity. Is there universalism in Christianity? Yes, in some form or other it is there, but it is felt nowadays by a small section of Christians. Over the first 500 years of Christian history, there are records of at least 6 theological schools. 4 of these schools were universalist, one each in Alexandria, Antioch, Caesarea, and Edessa Nisibis. So these are the 4 universalists. The other 2, one taught conditional immortality in Ephesus, and the last one taught eternal hell in Carthage or Rome. Most Christians, so you can say before the Justinian convention, they were having this kind of, majority used to be universalist in the sense, universalist in what sense? That ultimately people of all religion will be accepted by God and by Jesus Christ, and they will go to heaven, all of them, you see, whatever. Now the Universalist Church of America, originally called the Universalist General Convention, emerged in the late 18th century from a mixture of Anabaptists, Moravians, liberal Quakers, and people influenced by pietist movements such as Methodism. Americans from these religious backgrounds gradually created a new denominational tradition of Christian universalism during the 19th century. The Universalist Church of America grew to be the 6th largest denomination in the United States at its peak. In India, however, what was the evolution in India? Different races from ancient times entered from Asia by Khyber Pass, which ends near Peshawar in northwest Frontier province, and Bolan Pass, which is in Balochistan, the western part bordering Iran of Pakistan. So the poet says that nobody knows at whose invitation so many currents of immigrants entered here. Keho nahi jane karao vane koto manusher dhara, etc. But we know for certain that the appeal was from the Doab region of India, the largest stretch of fertile land on this earth. So India was like a hostess looking after the needs and tastes of people from many foreign countries. Conflict is a natural phenomenon in such a condition. In India, this conflict was there, but the dominant note was that of harmony and of conciliation, because India, alone of all countries, was able to exonerate 5% of her population from any bread-earning occupation and placed before them the ideal of your leadership in religion and spirituality. I am speaking of Brahmins. Many of these Brahmins dived deep into spiritual research and discovered the oneness of the universe. Of course, this second class of people of India, that means the warrior class, Kshatriyas, they also gave rise to several great mystics. Uh, for example, Buddha, Mahavir, and Krishna, they're all belong to the Kshatriya race. So that is another thing. But universalism has this also other aspects in modern days, because Pew Research Center declared on the basis of researches made in 2010, that means just 11 years ago, that 1.1 billions of the world people, 1.1 billions people are not affiliated to any religion. Not that they are all atheists or religious. They may believe in God, but they do not believe in any formal religion, because religion is not just affirmation about God, you see. It is also when you say that you are a Christian, you're a Muslim or a Hindu, normally you believe in certain sets of tenets, creeds. So thereby you call yourself by that adherence that you are belonging to this or that religion. But here it is not like that. These people may sometimes, you see, like this or that aspect in a religion, but without saying that I belong to that religion. So that is and apart from that, there are also, you see, a large number of people who cannot be easily tracked, because they are not detached from a religion, but very, very nominally attached. Look at France, for example. The people are, by and large, they are Catholic people, but most of them are non-practicing. Most of them have very little connection with the religion. So that is another, you see, during marriage or baptism, etc., they go to church. Otherwise, they have very little to do with church. So that is another thing, and from this is one type, and another type is this very modern religious movements. There is a modern religious movement, say, though most people are atheists in Japan. There is a modern religious movement also there. And people, those Wiccas, who believe in witchcraft and who accept gods and goddesses, etc. So because they're also a new type of religion. So anyhow, these are there. If the country is liberal, if it allows religious views of different types, then it will always happen. It may not happen in countries where the regulations are tight, where death penalty may be there if you say that do not belong to your mother religion. But universalism is of this thing. And Swamiji, regarding Swamiji, he also used to say that it is good to be born in a religion, but it is not good to die in it. What does he mean by this? He meant by this that it is good to be in a religion because you practice in that form. It is like, as Sri Ramakrishna used to say, that because of the skin, and the fruit grows and ripens. But when it is ripe, you discard the skin and take the pulp inside. So similarly, you see, a person who has grown much mature in spirituality, he does not have a need of a particular religion. That is what is in the second chapter of the Gita. Yavanarthudopane sarvata sankritodake tavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijanata. Which means that if there is a pond from which you take water and which is by the side of your cottage, if the whole country is flooded, then there is hardly any need of this little pond. Similarly, a person who has transcendental experience, for him, all the Vedas are like that. That is what this sutra says. That means he has little use of these Vedas and Vedangas and Puranas because he has, say, reached the goal of spiritual life. This was Swamiji's view, and that's why he also used to say, I learned from a master that religions are many, but the religion is one. And he described what is this religion. He said, each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity within by controlling nature, internal and external. Do it either by work or worship, by psychic control or philosophy, by one or more of these, and be free. This is the whole of religion. The books, the dogmas, the forms, the rituals, they are but secondary details. So that is the whole of religion. That means the manifestation of the divinity which is already in man. So this is in a nutshell the ideas of Swami Vivekananda as he developed in Chicago and in other places. So any question?
So far, no questions in the chat, Swamiji. I would like to ask you one question.
Yes.
So the main purpose of Sri Ramakrishna's incarnation was, as I understand, the universal religion that always...
No, Swamiji does not say that main purpose was the mission of my master's. That means this is one of his mission. We say the Holy Mother says that this Samanaya question is there. The Samanaya, that means this concord among the religions. It is there in his life, but what is most important is the in his life is the renunciation. Renunciation, and the other question is the Matri Bhava. That means of all the attitudes, the attitude of the son to the mother, you see, so apply it to God. That is called Matri Bhava. But this was, Samanai also was one of his main missions, in the sense he did not took it up consciously, but he had a tremendous thirst for knowing how people in different religions are testing God in what way. So he went through all these religions. He went through Sufism. Sufism is a little diversified religion. It depends upon the branch of Sufism, what you are practicing. But generally, Sufis are a little liberal than the Orthodox Muslims, and that is certain. And there was an attempt more than 1,000 years ago to bring Sufism close to Islam. But what is happening even now, that the Muslim psyche is not your decided about the nature of Sufism. So in certain countries, they are honored. In certain countries, they are tolerated. In certain countries, they are persecuted even now.
Since Sri Ramakrishna has practiced many of these other religions, do you think that there was an impact on these other religions to become more open?
More open means, you see, as I have said, that there are liberal, your Christians, for example, there are liberal Christians, and many of them, at least the leaders, they secretly they read the complete works of Swami Vivekananda, but do not mention him in their lectures. They assimilate their teachings in their lectures. So thereby, it is like that, you see, is happening. Whenever there is a grand something happening, for example, I do not know as yet, I am not certain whether the what is called the Vatican II. You know what is Vatican II convention? The Vatican II convention was held from 1962 to 1965. Idea of the then Pope was that the Catholic Church has become outdated. It must be updated. So the 3-year convention, it became more liberal, but more liberal in what sense? If you read the principles of ecumenism, you'll find that they're saying that there is full light in the Catholic Church only. In other religions, there may be light, but it is mixed with darkness. So that way they're liberal, and previously it was considered a sin to dialogue with a heathen, for example. But normally nowadays they do not think that it is a sin. In this way, liberal, but it is a gradual impact will be there, certainly. But you cannot expect that overnight a great thing, something is happening.
So there is one question which came in. Could you please tell us how we can have a religion but not to die it?
Not to die it. If you grow in religion intensely, if you do it intensely, then as Sri Ramakrishna himself says that God knows your heart, he will guide you. There are errors in religious doctrines and religious books, because what is there in religious books? 3 types of ideas are there in religious books. One idea is there are universal ideas. They have come to the sages through their meditation, etc. This is one type. Another type of things you will find in holy books is the speculation about different things, metaphysical speculations. These speculations are done by the human mind. So there are certainly here and there errors in it. This is the second type of thing. Third type of thing, certain times in holy books you will find that there is uncharitable remarks about other religions. For example, even in Hinduism, for example, Shiva Mahimna Stotra, you take it. It is a wonderful your hymn, Shiva Mahimna Stotra. But there, you see, in one of the verses, they are saying that this Brahma was incestuous. But this Vishaya Megatishna na Brahmayati, but you see, this thirst for worldly enjoyments, that does not disturb the mind of Shiva. So there is a dig at another religious path to, you see, this is there in holy books. You see, for example, in one of the epistles which you find in the New Testament, they're saying that you should not have intimate dialogue with Jews. So you see, the happiest thing is that there is no such sentence in the sayings of Jesus himself. So in the holy books also have this kind of things, and there are certain times there are certain rules which are being said, which is not. For example, in the first evangel according to Saint Matthew, Saint Matthew is saying through the mouth of Jesus that you should not divorce your wife except in the case of fornication on her part. That means if she has been not been fidel, then you may abandon her, but no such thing against the husband. So these kind of things are also there. That means these are rules promulgated according to the social custom of those days. For example, certain Muslims, they uphold even now that it is okay to lapidate a woman, say, for her sin, because Muhammad himself presided over such a lapidation. So if you go like that, you'll find, that means there are obsolete social customs which have been mentioned in the so-called holy books and not condemned there. So you should be attentive about holy books. Holy books contain, so that's why Sri Ramakrishna used to say that the holy books contain both sand and sugar. So the sage should pick up this sugar grains and reject the sand.
No other questions are there, Swamiji. I think we can go on to the next part, which is the meditation part with our subjects.
So meditation, the first, I should say, let us first of all take up the scene of this Ibadat Khana in Fatehpur Sikri, built by Akbar, say the Emperor Akbar. And Akbar listening attentively to the discourses of the scholars of different religions in his empire, in that palace. So let us have this theme as the first point of meditation. Next item will be Keshav Chandra Sen. Keshav Chandra Sen, now you imagine a pond and in front of it, Keshav with his followers are having a spiritual retreat. The year is 1875. Sri Ramakrishna went there uninvited, but guided by God, because God, the mother, the divine mother, had shown him the image of your Keshav and his followers, etc. So he went there with a horse-drawn carriage with his nephew Hridaya. And Hriday announced to Keshav Chandra Sen that my uncle is a God intoxicated person, and since you are meditating on God, he wants to talk with you. So Keshav allowed. And then Sri Ramakrishna went there, and seeing Keshav, his first remark was that, "Oh, I see your tail has fallen off." You see, everyone began to laugh. They thought that here is a madman. But Keshav said, "No, no, no, let me ask him. There must be a meaning in it." And then Keshav asked him, "What do you mean by it?" He said, the tadpole, it remains in your water. And when the tail drops down, it can be on the land and also in water. So similarly, Keshav is in a state that he can be in yoga and also in samsara, bhoga. So then he began to talk and sing, and certain times going into samadhi. This continued for hours. This whole thing transformed Keshav Chandra Sen in one day. These several hours of, you see, preaching and talking by this wonderful saint. So let us have this as the, because we have mentioned Keshav and his Navavidhan. So let us meditate on this. Our next item will be your Swamiji in Madras Ice House. He is talking to the group of Pandits and about these three stages: Dvaita, Vishishta and Advaita. Dvaita means Dvaita means actually, though it is two means, but actually they are saying that this world is full of many, many things. And the world is different from your God and different from the soul. And souls are many. So these kind of differences are there, an eternal difference. That is the Dvaita view. Vishistadvaita says that there are many things in the universe, but they are comprised in one entity. As the mango tree has got, you see, the branch, the twigs, the fruits, but the whole is a mango tree. So similarly, Brahman comprises many, many things, you see. Advaita says that the many things, they are a lower category of truth, because this thing is, this vanishes, everything in deep meditation. So, and in deep meditation, you have a certitude of some oneness which is there, which cannot be sufficiently described. So, in fact, in this deep meditation, your mind is not there. Your mind has stopped, the ordinary mind has stopped working. So when he was explaining these stages, there was a kind of revolt. They saying that Shankara has not said that human beings pass through the three stages. And Swamiji replied that it is because this truth was reserved for Swami Vivekananda to be preached to the world. So this is our next theme.
Swamiji,
Yes,
there is a last question which came in.
yes.
Do we really need to believe in a religion? Or in other words, what is the benefit of believing in a religion?
You see, believing in a religion is, you see, I have mentioned it briefly, saying that a fruit grows because the skin is there. It can, we say skin, it is circumscribing a fruit, the pulp. But if you take out, because ultimately you reject this your skin, so if you take out the skin from the tree and say that we do not need it, the fruit will grow, it will not grow. Similarly, for most people, religion is necessary. Certain forms, certain rituals, certain books, you see. Swamiji himself said that we want to lead humanity to a place beyond the Bible, beyond the Quran, beyond the Vedas, but it has to be done through them. The idea is that, you see, you cannot reject religion in the primary stage, you see, unless you are a great evolved person from your birth itself because of your practices in the previous existence. For example, Ramana Maharshi, he went straight to this Advaita, and it is because of his practices in earlier existences. But ordinarily, you cannot do it. You have to go through lower stages. You have to accept a religion, whatever may be. The Hindu religion is special in the sense there are many avenues in Hindu religion. You can be a karma yogi, and through that you can be a great bhakta, a person of devotion, which is there in most religions. You can be a philosopher and study Vedanta and finally practice it, or you can even, you see, try to develop concentration, which is yoga, and rise thereby. So there are many avenues, and even in the bhakti yoga there are different symbols, different devotas, you see. Whatever you like, you can do it. You see, that is the, and if you do not like any one of them and you think that you are a great philosopher, then you're okay. That is also okay. But as Ramakrishna said, do not befool yourself. That means most people who begin in Nirakara, etc., so especially that was the fad in Brahma Samaj. Sri Ramakrishna used to warn them that you are doing everything in the world and saying time to time, repeating the Upanishads, etc., etc. It will not lead you anywhere. So religions for most people are required. Only very highly evolved people may discard all religions and go straight to God. Or if you are a great, very great devotee, you can pray intensely to God, and God will have contact with God without any holy books, without any holy person.